How does an understanding of human consciousness give us an edge to step up our own game? How can we use awareness of our own thought process to improve our daily lives? In this video, I'm going to give you some practical tools for choosing how the world shows up for you and what shows up in the world for you. Stick with me as we move through two models and give you some hands-on direction for how to use these tools in your own life. And right now, hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel so that you'll be notified when the next video comes up. I have studied several different models of consciousness, what you could call hierarchies of awareness. I like to call these ways of seeing. And it's not that a higher level of awareness is better than a lower level of consciousness or awareness. It's just that these different levels give you access to different ways of seeing the world. We have the capacity to see the world in very different ways. What I'm saying to you is that there is no one reality. There are many, many different realities. What is real to you at this moment or any other moment is the way that you and I are looking, seeing the world. But when you change the way that you look at things, the things that you look at change. You and I are shapeshifters. We can and do shift our identity from one moment to the next. For example, when you're hanging out with some friends at a party, you're a much different person than the person who shows up at the business meeting with a potential client. You are literally able to shift personas and become a different person by choice. You choose to see the world at different ways at any moment. For example, I could choose to see the world as a beautiful place that's set up for my highest growth potential. Or I could see the world as a place of pain, death, and destruction. Both are true, right? This world is a place of rebirth, growth, and expression of beauty. And this planet is also a place of pain, death, and destruction. But the way that I choose to see the world in this moment is going to be the primary influence on what shows up for me in this moment. Yes, I am the creator. I create this world by choosing how I am going to see it and how I am going to feel about it. I am the creator. I am the chooser. I choose how I will see my world. I am always choosing at every moment, and so are you. Right now, I'm very fascinated with Robert Kegan, who is a developmental psychologist. He taught at Harvard for 40 years, and he's written 7 books. Kegan talks about constructivism, which is the idea that reality doesn't just show up to us preformed. Humans give shape to raw experience by assigning meaning to it. If you look, most of us are not living inside of the raw now experience of the world, but rather most of us, most of the time, are living inside the reality of the meaning that we are assigning to the world. As my friend John Walden likes to say, the reptilian mind only has 2 questions it ever asks about anything that's happening around us. Question number 1 is, what does this mean about me? And question number 2 is, what should I do about it? So that's constructivism. Human beings are meaning-making machines. The second idea that Robert Kegan talks about is developmentalism. Human beings don't just grow in a linear fashion. True human growth is like a caterpillar. We don't just keep getting bigger and stronger, but soon enough, when we're ready, we transform ourselves from the caterpillar into the butterfly. And while the butterfly continues to understand the world of the caterpillar, the butterfly is living and seeing a completely different world because now the butterfly has wings and lives mostly in the air. The butterfly sees a very different world than the caterpillar sees. According to Robert Keegan, as humans, we go through 3 major stages of growth and evolution throughout the course of our lifetimes. Number 1, we go through the socialized mind. Number 2, we go through the self-authoring mind. And number 3 is we go into the stage of the self-transforming mind. In small traditional societies, the socialized mind might be completely adequate as a way to live your life and go throughout the entirety of it, and that's fine. We know what our role is in society, we know what everybody's doing or supposed to do, and we know how to do it, and we just follow along with the rules of society. We know kind of how our entire life is going to go, and we know how everybody else's life is supposed to go. But in this postmodern world, we have so many definitions of how one is supposed to live and who one is supposed to be, right? With the increasing demands from all quarters of life, there's not one single set of expectations for how we're supposed to deal with the demands of life. The socialized mind is inadequate to deal with our current postmodern reality. What does it take to live not just by what others expect of you in society, but to begin to live from your own internal compass? The self-authoring mind requires a very different stage of growth and a very different self-awareness than the socialized mind. The self-authoring mind picks up that psychological pen for you and authors its own identity and its own set of beliefs for itself. This self-authoring makes you much more of a personal authority rather than just repeating what someone else said that you ought to do. Instead of just inhaling the surrounding culture, you are beginning to improve it just a little bit. The self-authoring mind is a higher level of awareness than the socialized mind, which is just following along with the rules and the expectations of society. But even the self-authoring mind has its own limitations. Your mind has its own limitations. This brings us to a third level of awareness, which allows us to step back from your own inner system and to begin a new transitional journey, which Robert Keegan calls the self-transforming mind. Instead of identifying with the form that you have created, your mood, your attitude, your beliefs, your specific tribe, your very own identity, at the level of awareness called the self-transforming mind, you can now see yourself as a self that creates forms. You can now move from one form to another. I call this being a shape shifter. Once you have cultivated the ability to see from different levels of awareness, you can begin to see that you are able to create many different worlds depending on the level of awareness that you are seeing from. There are many different worlds that each of us is creating. At this level, you are now able to hold different belief systems and different forms all together, all at the same time. You can hold the politics of conservatism, you can hold the politics of progressivism, all at the same time. You can think both thoughts at once. You can hold both the light and both the darkness in your mind and in your heart, both at the same time. Plus, you can understand that the way to change the world is to change yourself. You now understand that when you change yourself, you shift society, because this shift within yourself represents a death to your own identity. And it also means that you have to change the social contract between you and the dominant culture that you are living in. By shifting your identity, your awareness, and your consciousness, you are simultaneously shifting the identity, awareness, and consciousness of the society at large. Whether or not you're aware of it, I like to place this model by Robert Kegan, the socialized mind, the self-authoring mind, the self-transforming mind. I like to place this model side by side by a different model by spiritual director Dr. Michael Beckwith. And his model is to me, by me, and through me. In the to me stage, we are victims. In the by me stage, we're pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps, and we're manifesting, and we're seizing the day, and we're taking charge with our own mind. In the through me stage, I have an inner belief that life is always happening for me. I learn to yield to it. I train myself to surrender to the greater flow of life. And in Dr. Beckwith's model, there's also a fourth stage, which is as me. The line of separation between me and you, me and it, me and the universe, the line of separation dissolves. And I feel my oneness with all of life with no filter. Life is happening through me and as me. I am one. I am it. There is no separation. So let's wrap this up on a super powerful note. Most of us who think about, well, how can I shift my identity? How can I raise my level of consciousness? Are thinking about it solely in terms of a personal journey. How can I do this for myself? But our human population has roughly tripled in size in the last 100 years. And also in the last 100 years, we've greatly extended how long, the number of years that each of us lives. What if we are all living longer as we collectively attempt to solve the problems of greed, warfare, and destruction? These are tribal problems that have come along with us through millennia. Robert Kegan has noted that quote from Einstein, which says that we will never solve any of our problems from within the level of consciousness at which we created the problems. We've got to find a higher level of consciousness to solve the problems that we created at the lower levels of consciousness. All of us grew up in a culture, at least here in the United States, that fundamentally believes that you and I are separate entities. You are over there, and I am over here. But what if actually we are all interconnected, like cells, like a multicellular organism? You and I are cells of a unified, collective consciousness organism. What if the solutions to many of our collective problems are trying to work their way through many of us as a collective unit? Maybe you and I are here studying levels of consciousness as part of a mass raising of the collective consciousness that continues to evolve among all of us, throughout all of us, all at the same time. Maybe you and I are here studying levels of consciousness as part of a mass raising of consciousness, that we are all evolving and growing our consciousness together as a unified, collective, conscious organism. Hope you like the content. Would love to hear from you in the comments down below. Hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Thanks.